I've been a glacier trekking guide in Alaska for 3 years. Before that, I spent 12 years as a park ranger in Colorado, so I know the outdoors. I know how to keep people safe. And in 70 expeditions on the Mendenhall Glacier system, I never had a single incident. Until David. David booked a solo 3-day glacier camping trip in August of 2022. Mid-40s, fit, seemed stable. Software engineer from Seattle doing the whole soul-searching thing after quitting his job. Nothing unusual. We met Friday morning, did the safety briefing, signed the waivers, and the helicopter dropped us on the ice by noon. The first day was normal. David was quiet, asked good questions, seemed comfortable with the silence. We hiked 8 miles to our first camp near this massive pressure ridge. Walls of blue ice on 3 sides, meltwater trickling somewhere below, that incredible evening light turning everything azure. After dinner, David asked if he could walk down to the ridge to take photos. I said sure, just stay in sight. 20 minutes later I couldn't see him anymore. I grabbed my gear and headed toward the ridge, calling his name. No response. My mind was already running through crevasse rescue protocols when I finally spotted him standing 50 yards away, facing an ice wall, not moving, not taking photos, just staring. "David, you okay?" He didn't turn around. When I got closer and called again, he finally turned. The look on his face stopped me cold. Pure terror. "There's someone in there," he whispered. "In the ice. There's a face." It was looking at me. I looked at the wall. Just ice. Blue crystalline ice with dark mineral streaks. No face. Obviously no face. "David, there's nobody—" "I'm not hallucinating," he cut me off. "I know what I saw. There was a face, right there." I kept my voice calm. "Let's head back. First day on the glacier, the isolation, it can mess with people's perception." He stared at the wall for a few more seconds, then nodded. That night I barely slept. Not because of David, but because I kept thinking about what he'd said. People do die on glaciers, and sometimes they stay there. The ice preserves them. I'd heard the stories. The next morning, David seemed better, apologized for freaking out. We broke camp and continued to the second site, another 6 miles north. But he was different, watchful, like he was expecting something. Around mid-afternoon, during a water break, he asked, "Do you believe in ghosts?" That's loaded. I'm serious. Can places be haunted? Your brain fills in blanks, I said carefully. Fear, isolation, it makes us see things that aren't there. What if it's not about seeing, he said. What if it's about feeling, like presences, like being watched? Are you feeling watched now? Since last night, ever since that face. I should have called for extraction right there, but David insisted he could finish. 1 more night, then pick up in the morning. Less than 24 hours. We reached the second campsite around 5 p.m. This location was even more remote, nestled in a basin surrounded by ice formations like frozen cathedrals, stunning but oppressive. Sound acted strange here. Voices echoed. Footsteps seemed to come from multiple directions. Things felt normal for a while. We had dinner, talked about his startup plans, but as the sun set and shadows grew, David got tense again. His eyes kept darting to the ice formations around us. "We'll stay awake," I told him. "Keep lights on, 9 hours." The next few hours were the longest of my life. We sat in the tent, camp stove providing heat and light. David barely spoke, just listened to every sound outside. Every creak, he'd freeze. "Did you hear that?" Around 2 a.m. the grinding came back, louder, closer, circling our camp. David was near panic. "We need to go." "And go where?" "We stay put." At 3:30 the grinding stopped. The sudden silence was worse. Then we heard it. Footsteps on ice, heavy, crunching footsteps approaching the tent. David grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. I reached for my ice axe, heart hammering. The footsteps came closer. Closer. They stopped right outside the entrance. We waited. Nothing. After an eternity, I worked up the courage to look. Unzipped the flap just a crack, shone my flashlight outside. Nothing there. But in the snow, clear as day, were boot prints. Large, deep prints leading right up to our tent. Then stopping, like someone had stood there inches away, just watching us through the fabric. The helicopter arrived at 6:15. David didn't speak during the flight back, didn't speak when we landed. Just paid the extraction fee and left. I never saw him again. 2 weeks later, another North Star guide found something near that second campsite. A body in the ice, partially exposed. A climber, perfectly preserved. Had been there for decades. When the recovery team examined it, they found something disturbing. The climber's face was locked in an expression of absolute terror, mouth open in a silent scream, and the body had been positioned in a way that made it look like it had been walking, still trying to find a way out. I think about David sometimes. That face he saw in the ice, those boot prints outside our tent. And I wonder if that climber is still out there, still walking, still looking for someone who can see them. I run desert survival courses out of Tucson, corporate groups mostly. But occasionally someone wants the real deal. Marcus contacted me in September 2021, week-long intensive in the Sonoran. Just us, 80 miles on foot, no GPS, no sat phone, old school only. Compass and stars, former Army Ranger, wanted to refresh his skills. He was paying triple my rate, so I said yes. First 2 days were perfect. Marcus was efficient, tough, no complaints. I started to relax. Day 3, 2 p.m., temperature pushing 107. We were hiking through a stretch where nothing grows, just sand and rock shimmering in the heat. Marcus stopped dead. Ridge, 2 miles east, someone standing on it. I glassed it. Nothing. Rock and heat shimmer. "Marcus, there's nobody." Right at the peak. He took the binoculars. Looked for a long time. "Heat distortion," he finally said. But for the rest of the day, he kept checking behind us. That night, he sat with his back to the rock wall facing outward. "You okay?" I know what a mirage looks like. 2 tours in Iraq. That wasn't heat distortion. Day 4, Marcus asked me to stop. "You have a GPS on you?" We agreed. No GPS. "For emergencies, do you have one?" "Sat phone. Bottom of my pack." "Why?" "Check our coordinates." "Marcus, what's going on?" He looked at me. Pure fear in his eyes. "We're being followed." We were standing in the middle of an open plain. Visibility for miles. "There's nobody." "Then explain those." He pointed behind us. Alongside our prints was another set, different tread, following our exact path. My stomach dropped. Could be another hiker, following our exact route, staying exactly 100 yards back. He shook his head. "No, someone's tracking us." The prints were fresh. He was right. We kept moving. The tracks stayed with us, always 100 yards behind, never closer, never farther. That night Marcus insisted on watch shifts. During his shift, 3 a.m., he woke me with his hand over my mouth, pointed into the darkness. At first, nothing. Then I saw it. A figure, 50 yards out, completely still. I reached for my flashlight. Marcus grabbed my wrist. "Don't." We watched it. It didn't move. After 10 minutes, it was gone. "We're leaving. Now." "Marcus, it's the middle of the night." "I don't care." He was already packing. I couldn't let him go alone. We used the sat phone GPS and hiked in darkness. 8 miles before dawn. When we stopped to rest, Marcus finally spoke. "The desert remembers. That's what we said in Iraq. You do something bad out there, the desert keeps score." He looked at me. "There was a village, 2007. We went in for intel. When we left," he stopped, started again. "There were 19 people in that village. We counted after. 19. He was quiet for a long moment. His hand went to his neck like he was checking for something, a pulse maybe, or making sure he was still real. "I came back here on purpose, the Sonoran. I needed to know if it was just Iraq, just that desert, or if it's all of them." He looked at the sand around us. "I needed to know if what I did stays in one place, or if it follows." He looked back the way we'd come. And now I know. It followed. It's been walking this whole time, never stopping, never calling out, just following, getting closer, waiting for me to be alone. We made it to pick up Friday. Marcus didn't speak the entire way, just walked, checking behind us. When we got back, he paid in cash, left, never heard from him again. A week later, I was going through photos from the trip, landscape shots. And in one photo from day 4, there's something on that ridge, a figure, exactly where Marcus said. I zoomed in. Resolution wasn't good enough for details. Could be a person, could be rock, could be anything. But here's what made my blood run cold. I checked the timestamp. 2:47 p.m. We'd taken that photo in full daylight. Bright sun, harsh shadows, everything sharp and defined, but the figure on the ridge? It wasn't casting a shadow. Nothing around it was. No shadow on the ground, no distortion in the air, just a shape standing there, watching us. I went back through every photo from that trip. 23 photos total. The figure appears in 9 of them, always in the background, always the same distance away, always watching. And in the last photo, taken on day 6 as we were leaving, I finally got a clear shot of it. It wasn't standing on the ridge anymore. It was standing right behind Marcus, close enough to touch him. This story isn't mine. It's from an old guide named JP who I met at a conference in 2015. 40 years guiding Louisiana swamps. Nothing compared to December 1989. JP got a booking from a documentary crew. 5 people. Producer, cameraman, sound guy, 2 researchers. They wanted to film a segment about Petit Bayou, a settlement that existed in the 1850s but was abandoned after a yellow fever outbreak in 1867. Wiped off all maps, no official records, just oral history. One researcher, a Tulane professor, claimed to have found a hand-drawn map from 1867, showed the exact location of Petit Bayou, deep in the swamp. JP was skeptical. People came through all the time with authentic maps to lost places. Usually nonsense, but they were paying well, so he agreed. They set out on a Friday morning. December in Louisiana, cold on the water, low 40s, thick mist. The map led them deeper into the basin than JP usually went, away from established channels into shallow water choked with vegetation. They reached the coordinates by late afternoon. Nothing there, just swamp. But the professor suggested they scout on foot. There were patches of higher ground in the area. Maybe the town was built on one of those. JP wasn't thrilled. They'd be losing light soon, but the professor was insistent. They followed a narrow ridge through the cypress trees and found it. Not a town. One structure, a church. Small, wooden, half-collapsed. Roof mostly gone. Walls barely standing. But unmistakably, a church. Even had a bell tower, though the bell had fallen years ago and lay rusted in the mud. The crew went crazy. Proof that Petit Bayou existed. They started filming immediately. JP hung back. Something bothered him. It was too quiet. In the swamp there's always noise. Birds, insects, frogs, water. Here nothing, just silence. The professor wanted to go inside. JP advised against it. Structure was unstable. But she insisted. Historical find. Had to document the interior. Against his judgment, JP went with them. Floor rotted through in places. Pews toppled, covered in moss. At the front, behind the altar, was a wall carved with names. Dozens of names. Each with a date. All from 1867. The victims, the professor said quietly. The people who died in the outbreak. The cameraman was filming when the sound guy noticed something. In the corner, partially hidden by debris, was a door, slightly ajar. "What's down there?" JP approached and shone his flashlight through. Stone stairs leading down into darkness. A cellar or a crypt? "We have to look," the professor said. "Absolutely not," JP said firmly. "This building could collapse any second. We've got our footage. Time to leave." There was argument, but JP held firm. Sun was setting. Navigating the swamp at night was dangerous. They made it back to the boat and started home. But an hour in, as darkness fell, the engine died. JP tried everything. No obvious issue. Engine just wouldn't start. He told them not to panic. He had a radio, could call for help, but when he tried the radio, just static. No signal, which was strange. He'd used it in this area dozens of times. They decided to anchor for the night. Try again at first light. That's when they heard it. Singing. Faint, distant, but clear. A hymn in French. Multiple voices, harmonizing. "Is there another boat?" the producer asked. JP listened. The documentary crew left the next morning. Didn't stick around. JP never heard from them again. Tried to contact them weeks later, but the production company had no record of the expedition. No record of the booking. Nothing. JP tried to find the church again himself weeks later. Same route, same coordinates. Nothing there, just swamp. Tried again with different equipment. Same result. The church was gone. JP told me this in 2015, months before he died. I asked what he thought really happened, if the place was haunted. "I don't know about haunted," he said, "but that place didn't want us there. Some places are meant to stay forgotten. The dead buried that church for a reason. I've been guiding for 15 years, seen strange things, but JP's story keeps me up at night. Because if Petit Bayou can appear and disappear, what else is out there? What other forgotten places are waiting in the deep woods, the deserts, the abandoned corners? Places that shouldn't be found. JP died 3 months after telling me that story. Heart attack in his sleep. Natural causes, they said. But his daughter told me something at the funeral. The night before he died, JP woke up screaming. Told her he'd heard it again, the singing, the bell, coming from his backyard where the swamp started.